Well, hello, fam. It's your girl, Natalie, the Keto Bikini Pro, and we are live for Monday Night Masterclass. I hope you are all doing well. Please drop me a note in the comments, in the chat, if you're here live with me. Let me know who's here. I know Karen and Amanda are here. Who else is with us live? Also, I want you to drop, since we are talking about fasting tonight, I've got quite many recent-ish fasting trends that have been trending topics. Everything from, I'm going to go down the list real quick. I'm going to read them all off. If there is anything beyond this that you've heard about in the fasting space and you want my thoughts on it, drop it in the chat. I'm going to go through the topic tonight about fasting in general, why people do it, the benefits or the promises of fasting, my advice, my general advice about fasting, how you can achieve the benefits of fasting without fasting, and then risks and concerns with fasting. And then I'm going to go through in kind of a quick fire way all of the recent fasting trends, why they are popular, why people are interested in doing them, my thoughts on each of them. Yes, my thoughts on each of them, what I think, what I recommend. And so if there's any that are not already on this list, let me know and I'll add them to the list if I've heard of them. If not, then I'll tell you, I've never heard of that. Okay, so we've got intermittent fasting. We've got extended fasting. Of course, right now, the hot topic, sugar fasting, fat fasting, sardine fasting, egg fasting, alternate day fasting, PSMF, protein-sparing modified fasting. Anything beyond that you can think of, drop in the chat and I'll add it to the list for quick fire. All right. So we're talking about all of that tonight. We're talking about all the different forms of fasting, why people do them, why they're popular, what's attractive about it, what's a real benefit of it, and do you need to fast to get these benefits? What do I have to say about it? This is not going to be a surprise to the ladies in my community because I already know that you already know what I'm going to say probably about all of this. But here we go. I cannot believe this masterclass is going in the list of, I can't believe I haven't talked about this yet. So this one is a lot like the cortisol class that I did that had been requested for a long time, and I never spoke on it because, well, it's complex. But also, if I had spoken about fasting prior to today, especially if I'd done it a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, the answer, it would have been the shortest masterclass in the history of masterclasses. Just don't fast. But I want to tackle all of these enticing fasts and really get into each of them. So finally, I've been inspired to actually fill an hour talking about fasting beyond don't do it. Okay, so let's see. Let's start with definition of fasting. Define our terms, as I like to do at the beginning of these things. The dictionary definition of fasting is to abstain from all or some kinds of food or drink, especially for religious observance. So as we likely all know, fasting is not new. Fasting for health, even for health reasons, is not new, but fasting itself is absolutely not new. It's ancient. It's as old as time. People have been doing it for spiritual and religious purposes and health purposes for a very, very long time. So let's talk about the benefits, or what I like to call the promises of fasting. Can you already tell I have a bias? Okay, so benefits of fasting. Why do people do it? Share it with me in the comments. Let me know if you have done any form of fasting in the past, what form you have tried, and why did you try it? What was the purpose? What enticed you to do that type of a fast? What was your goal? So why do people fast? Aside from, I'm going to put aside religious or spiritual reasons. We're not going to talk about that here. We're going to talk about the health and weight loss benefits that people in our space and health and fitness, the reason why people are fasting. So, sorry, I want to make sure. Okay, just double checking that. Didn't have any comments pop up or questions pop up. Okay, so why do people fast? Well, one of the biggest reasons, and one of the ones I'm going to speak honestly about tonight, is weight loss and metabolic health. And a lot of the time, those two things are grouped together. People who are seeking fat loss or weight loss are also likely stating that they're looking for metabolic health benefits. So reducing, improving their hormone function, lowering insulin, improving metabolic health, regardless of whatever your metabolic condition is. Breaking down fat for energy, utilizing your body's fat stores. So with each of these, I think I'm going to go ahead, or am I going to say that later? Hang on, I think I'll say that later. Yes, ways that you can achieve these benefits without fasting. So we'll get to that in a bit. But first, let's just talk about the reasons. Weight loss and metabolic health. And the big concern here for me, I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, that when we seek weight loss at any cost, just want to get the weight down, just want to get the scale to go down, just want to lose 50 pounds, whatever it might be, we are not thinking about where that weight is coming from. We are just thinking weight, get the weight off. And that is flawed thinking. For those of you who have been in my community, you know, all weight is not created equal. Our body is made up of lots of things that carry weight. Muscle being a very important one of them, organs, tissues, blood, fluids, water, and on and on and on. So seeking weight loss without considering body composition changes is a major flaw. Okay, cellular repair. The buzzword autophagy. I'm doing it for autophagy. Well, we know that fasting is known to induce autophagy, which is a process of cellular cleaning. But you don't have to fast to get the benefits of autophagy. We'll talk about that in a moment. Brain health. Of course, you heard a friend, somebody out there, somebody in our community share, fasting boosts cognitive function, improves brain health, protects against neurodegenerative disorders, actually helps people manage their mental, psychological, brain conditions. And then finally, inflammation reduction and gut healing. This is another big one, right? If you're not eating at all, you're not going to be inflamed by whatever you might be eating. There absolutely are alternatives to just not eating, to healing your gut and reducing inflammation in your body. So we'll talk about that as well. Okay. So my general advice, and the reason I haven't done this masterclass before, is because my general advice is that there's just no reason to fast. Once again, we're not talking about religious observances by all means. But for these benefits we just talked about, brain, gut, inflammation, metabolic health, cellular repair, weight loss, you don't have to fast to get those benefits. And it's not worth it. We're going to get into the risks in a little bit. But in my professional opinion, fasting, the benefits of fasting do not outweigh the risks. Okay, so this is the takeaway right here. This is the excerpt I want you to capture from this masterclass if you get nothing else. Fasting is depriving your body of nutrients. Think of food not just as energy, fuel, and calories. If you stop thinking about your body and the foods that you eat as fuel, calories, energy, and you recognize that food is nutrition, food carries nutrients that literally build your body, create all of the structures in your body, make tissues, repair tissues, improve all of your bodily systems. Every single system of your body needs nutrients that we get from food to function optimally. Your endocrine system, ladies, your hormones, your neurological system, your brain, and your spinal cord, and your central nervous system, and your peripheral nervous system, your muscles, your skeletal muscular system, your cardiovascular system, your digestive system, all the systems of your body, your immune system, huge immune system. Every single system of the body needs nutrients. And ultimately, when we are fasting, when we are depriving our body, we are literally depriving our body of nutrients when we are not feeding it. That is the bigger piece of the puzzle to understand here. When we're chasing, especially when we're chasing after fat loss and we're thinking about fasting as a means for weight loss or fat loss, we are just thinking about the caloric value of food, the energy or the fuel that the food provides. We are not thinking about all of the other things that that food is doing inside our body for our health. So I can promise you that in 99.9% of situations, eating nutrients, consuming nutrients is going to be better for your health than fasting. All right, so let's talk about how you can achieve the benefits of fasting, the promises that fasting promises. All right, number one, and this is so huge in our space, y'all, in the keto carnivore space. Fasting mimicking diets. Keto, carnivore, low insulin state. Diets that put you in a low insulin state. Diets that restrict carbohydrates are fasting mimicking diets because your insulin is suppressed. So do not fast on top of keto and carnivore. If you are already depriving your body of carbohydrates, so you are already controlling those insulin levels, fasting on top of it is not going to make it better. In many cases, in most cases, in what I have seen in my own practice, it causes more harm than good. More is not better in this case. Not eating carbs, so now I'm not going to eat anything because it's already like I'm fasting, so I might as well be fasting. It's not going to make things better. It only makes things worse. And we're going to talk about how in a little bit. But you can achieve autophagy. You can achieve these benefits of fasting, the cognitive benefits, the gut healing benefits, the cellular repair, the weight loss, the metabolic health, by simply going on a fasting mimicking diet, an anti-inflammatory diet. Cutting out the things that are inflaming you, not cutting out everything, not getting rid of the baby with the bathwater, not throwing out all nutrients, cutting the crap. All right, the other big one, the next big one, my next favorite. we had low carb diets, and exercise. Exercise. I'm going to drop in the description after this live a video from Dr. Anthony Chafee called "You Don't Need to Fast for Autophagy." And it just basically says everything I'm saying here, maybe even a little bit more. It gets into the science a little bit for the nerds. But here's a little piece about exercise for autophagy in particular, because exercise absolutely will help with weight loss, especially fat loss, metabolic health, cellular repair, brain health, inflammation, all of these things, and even gut healing. Because if you're sedentary and you start moving your body in ways that are therapeutic, you can actually improve your gut health. So, but particularly when it comes to autophagy, let's just get sciencey for just a little second. I pulled this excerpt from an article. Regular physical activity triggers various cellular mechanisms that support cellular health, like increased mitochondrial biogenesis. That's a fancy word basically for autophagy. Exercise promotes the formation of new mitochondria, improving energy, metabolism, and reducing oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is one of the drivers of all disease. Number 2, enhanced protein turnover. Physical activity stimulates the breakdown and recycling of damaged proteins, leading to improved cellular function. Hello, autophagy. And number 3, improved insulin sensitivity. Regular exercise helps regulate blood sugar levels, further supporting cellular health and reducing the risk of metabolic disease. Improving your insulin sensitivity is another word for reducing insulin resistance, reversing insulin resistance. Guess what? You can do that with exercise. And if you pair that with a keto, carnivore, low carb diet, boom, you don't need fasting. Less is more in this case, unless we're talking about less food. Okay, the next thing, simply cutting down on your overall intake. So you may have heard it called a caloric deficit. I like to call it an energy deficit. Pulling back on how much energy you're putting into your body so that your body can tap into its own fat stores for fuel. This is the fuel side of the equation. We were talking about the nutrients. Now we're talking about the fuel. If you are over-consuming fuel in any form, including fats, yes, you can over-consume fats. Don't let the influencer gurus tell you that eating too much fat is not a thing and you'll just poop it out. That's simply not true. Your body will absolutely store fat as body fat if you overconsume it. So, especially when we're talking about weight loss and metabolic health, instead of fasting, you can eat less. Caloric restriction, or as I call it, an energy deficit, especially combined with exercise, that's what I specialize in. Change your body composition, lose fat without losing muscle, which we'll talk about in a minute, improve your insulin sensitivity, reduce or reverse your insulin resistance. Not to mention, once again, all the brain health benefits of exercising regularly. Okay. More time between meals. You want to fast? Stop snacking. Guess what? You can fast between breakfast and lunch, or lunch and dinner, or breakfast and dinner. It doesn't have to be 24 hours, 72 hours. It doesn't have to be eating nothing for days. It doesn't have to be only ever eating one food. Just don't snack between meals. There's a step in the right direction. And you will improve your blood sugar regulation. You will improve your gut health by not shoving food in all day long, grazing. You will lose body fat. if you're not over consuming in your main meals, which I can almost guarantee you that most people do not overeat in their meals. They are eating snacks, they are eating when they're not hungry, and that is what is driving a caloric or energy surplus, and that is what's driving fat gain. So if you want to fast, try just fasting between meals. Start there. Okay. So lots of things you can do instead of fasting to get the benefits of weight loss, metabolic health, cellular repair, brain health, inflammation, and gut healing. Let's see. All right, let me state this. This one might trigger some folks, so be prepared. Trigger warning. If you are fasting for medical purposes, and by medical purpose, I mean necessity, not preference. Not, I have this condition, I heard fasting can help, I'm going to fast. If you're fasting for medical necessity, meaning it is critical that you fast for a medical purpose, you should be doing so under medical supervision. If you have not been advised by a medical professional to fast for your particular situation because it is critical, and you are unwilling to seek medical advice or supervision when fasting for a medical reason, then I'm going to push back on that and say, fasting is not a necessity for you. You do not need it, because you are choosing then to put yourself at risk without assistance from a trained medical professional. And I would encourage you to consider why. If you say, I have to fast for my XYZ condition, and you have not spoken to a medical professional about it, and you are not seeking assistance with that process, why? I can't tell you how many times I have seen women, especially because that's who I work with exclusively, state that they have to fast for XYZ medical purpose. They are not working with a doctor. They refuse to reach out to a doctor. And the truth is, their medical purpose is an excuse to fast because they really just want to lose weight. They're doing it for the wrong reasons, and they are using a medical condition as an excuse. That could be a masterclass in and of itself, because I see that all the time, where women are being given the advice that they need to hear about how they will heal, and they refuse to take that advice, and they continue to do the things that are harming them. And there is an issue here mentally and emotionally that we need to face. Why am I doing something that is harming me despite being given advice to the contrary? So consider that, especially if you're feeling triggered by me saying there's no reason to fast. All right. Okay. Before I dive into the next big piece of this, where I'm going to give you another piece of my mind, let's read some comments. Celeste says, I finally saw gains after a 2-year plateau when I stopped training fasted. I wasn't trying to fast. I'm just never hungry in the morning. We're going to get to that in a moment also. Now I force myself to eat something. That is huge. We are definitely going to address the whole not hungry in the morning and a lot of the other things that I hear from clients and people out there in the space that I want to respond to. So, Kristen says, I feel so yuck when I fast. I feel better when I keep my carbs low. You're already mimicking the fast without depriving yourself of essential nutrients. What a concept, right? Oh boy. And Karen shared the original question that I had. If you attempted a fast, why did you do it? She said, I did an extended fast about 4 years ago for 72 hours because an influencer was encouraging it for autophagy. I think we've all been duped by an influencer or two in our time. All right. Great. Keep those comments coming, ladies. All right. So, ooh, shout out to me, Lady Laugh a Lot. I love that name. She says, catching up. Love the topic. Thank you. Okay, so here we go. You ready for the Coach Nat Tough Love? If you are fasting for weight loss or fat loss, don't. You don't need it. And while it may work, the benefits do not outweigh the risks. So let's talk about the risks and concerns with fasting and why it is not worth it if your focus is fat loss. Number one, and this is kind of you could call it a trivial thing, but usually it's a sign of something more. So it's a sign of something else that's further down on the list. So we have some simple short-term side effects. Hunger, irritability, headaches, and on and on and on. And I'll kind of explain where those even come from, right? Obviously hunger, right? Until you get through it, you're okay for a little bit, then you get hungry again, yada, yada. Okay, so the big concerns. Loss of muscle is number one. Number one, if I had $1 for every client that came to me and said, I fasted for months, for years, and now I can't lose a pound no matter what I do. I'll have to fast for the rest of my life because if I eat anything, I gain weight. How many have ever been there before? Either that or I hear, I fasted, I underate, I did keto and fasting and carnivore and added fasting on top of all of that, and I lost a ton of muscle. And now it's harder for me to gain that muscle back, especially in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, ladies. So number one, loss of muscle. We need to guard against muscle loss, sarcopenia, with everything we have, especially as we go through menopause. So fasting is not the answer. I don't care what influencer doctor wrote a book about fasting for women. It's terrible advice, and I'm just going to say that straight up. Terrible advice to chronically undereat protein in particular, but nutrients. Undereat food that is meant to nourish you. Okay. Loss of muscle, metabolic adaptation or metabolic downregulation. This comes along with the loss of muscle a lot of the time, but if you've seen my other master classes about cutting phases and building phases and metabolic restoration or reverse dieting and what we do in bodybuilding and why we do it, then you'll understand. If you are on a fat loss journey for a long time and you're just cutting, meaning dieting, eating less, and that's essentially what fasting is, it's eating nothing, then your metabolism is going to slow down. It's going to downregulate. It's going to adapt because that's what our bodies are designed to do. They adapt. If you want a deep dive on this, not specifically metabolic adaptation, but how the body responds to the inputs that we give it, check out our latest coffee chat, mine with Coach Bronson on Sunday, where we talked about reprogramming your body and how the body works like a computer. You put in inputs and it responds. That's what's happening when you are undereating. When you are chronically undereating, fasting is the number one way to chronically undereat. Your metabolism downregulates to keep you alive because that is what your body is designed to do. Survival. So if you're eating less, it regulates down to the amount that you're eating, and that becomes your new metabolic rate. So you might start out with a nice high metabolic rate, and then as you continue to diet, cut, fast, 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 your metabolism is now here. So if you've ever complained about a slow metabolism, it's not just how your body's designed, it's what you have done to it. And you can reverse it with metabolic restoration, and I can help you do that. If you need, drop a comment, let me know. But because it's not permanent, you can't break your metabolism. It's just that your body's responding to what you've done. So when you've done way too much fasting, you look at any piece of food and you start gaining weight because your body has downregulated to the amount you've been consuming. And if that amount is 0, then anything you eat is going to put weight on. Okay, dehydration. Now, this is something that hopefully in the keto and carnivore space, you are not attempting to fast without properly hydrating yourself with water and electrolytes, minerals. But hey, some people like to just dive in. And if you're diving in and you are just, oh, I heard that this dry fast was the right thing to do, or you're fasting with just water and you're not consuming sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, full spectrum minerals, and even vitamins, dehydration is a fear, is a concern. So yet another reason why medical supervision is necessary if you're doing it for medical purposes and you're doing an extreme fast, especially something like a dry fast. Please do not attempt a dry fast on your own. And then the biggest piece of all of this, that's really underpinning everything else, is nutrient deficiencies. Nutrient deficiencies, some say, is the root of all disease. So if you are not properly receiving the nutrients, the nourishment that your body needs to function well, as I talked about earlier, it can lead to severe nutrient deficiencies. And this is not something you're going to see acutely. So you can fast for a week or for like a day here and there throughout a week and say, I feel amazing when I fast. Well, you don't know what you're doing to yourself long term. And I can promise you, as a recovered bulimic, when I was fasting, which we're going to get into this in a minute, not only did it create binging, massive binge urges to eat everything, but also I was depriving my body of nutrients. And of course, your body is going to signal to you an alarm system of please feed me when you are not giving it what it needs to survive. And not just survive, but to thrive. Okay, the other piece, and this is, like I said, some of these things are downstream, some of these things are upstream. So nutrient deficiencies and dehydration is a form of nutrient deficiencies, electrolyte deficiencies, mineral deficiencies. Metabolic adaptation and loss of muscle is a form of deficiencies. So this one as well, stress and sleep. As I always like to talk about stress and sleep. Fasting can increase your stress levels and disrupt your sleep patterns. And the downstream effects of that, higher stress, the cortisol word, here comes the cortisol word again. As I talked about in the cortisol masterclass, high cortisol is not a problem if it's in the right context and it's not chronic. But when we are putting our bodies into a chronic state of nutrient deficiency, our sleep can be affected. And our sleep is the #1 way that our bodies recover every night. So when we're not sleeping well, now that's impacting everything else. And then we end up with this chronic stress. Chronic stress is what also drives disease. So we do not have the nutrients that we need to fight against disease. And now we're creating this stressful environment for our body to try as it might, desperately try to overcome, and we're not helping it by giving it the things that it needs. Okay, finally, as I touched on a second ago, eating disorders, disordered eating, and binge eating. Fasting is a major trigger for those with a history or a predisposition to disordered eating. It can lead to uncontrollable binges. And this binge restrict cycle, this is why you've been on the yo-yo string. When you can muscle through it and willpower through it and get through it, whatever the diet is that you're seeking, you think it's a magic pill, you think it's going to solve all your problems. And ultimately, this is what I see with fasting. And we're going to get into this in a minute. Woo, I got some things to say about it, why people turn to fasting. But a lot of the time, if you're one of those people who feel better when you fast, and not because of like a gut problem, but because you feel more in control when you're not eating at all, you might have disordered eating going on. And disordered eating is not going to be healed by any diet, and it's certainly not going to be healed by fasting. Oh my gosh, Oxy Roxy, I really appreciate you for sharing this. This is, I'm sure, very difficult to share, but I think it can be really impactful for those who may be going through what you're going through. She says, I think I ruined my body. My body is now attacking itself. My antibodies are over 400 points because of fasting. Now I'm trying to heal my body by eating. I don't think it's going to work. I'm scared. Let me just tell you, Oxy Roxy, it's going to work. I can promise you it's going to work. It may take time. It may take a lot of time. But you're doing the right thing. And we are here to help you if you need some support. If you're not in our Facebook group, dive into the Facebook group, Keto Bikini Secrets. The community in there is amazing. We can help you out. We'll be there for you every step of the way. Share what's going on. The coaches will be in there. The ladies will be in there. We got you. Just know that you are doing the right thing. Continue to see it through because you can heal. We do not ruin our bodies. And check out Coach Bronson and my coffee chat yesterday. I think it'll be helpful for you. We talked about how your body is not broken. It is simply responding to the inputs that it's been given. And you just need to stay the course. And as you change those inputs, your body will change. It will adapt. That is what it's designed to do. Our bodies are very, very good at that. So see it through, okay? See it through. All right, so here comes the tough love for any of the ladies who are likely where Moxie was before. If you are fasting because you can't control yourself when you're eating, you can't stick to a diet unless it's super strict, and you do better when you're not eating at all than when you eat regularly, hear me. Stop using fasting as a crutch and deal with your mental ish. Deal with your shit. Fasting will not save you. No diet will save you. You have to save yourself. When you jump on every trend that promises easier, quicker results or a solution to your problem, which is really a relationship with food issue, you are avoiding the real issue. Stop avoiding it. Face it. The only way out is through. Otherwise, you'll be stuck in the same cycle forever. No more quick fixes. The quick fixes lead to the cycle repeating again and again and again. Get off the roller coaster. All right. So this is the part where we'll get into all the different types of fasting and what do I think about each one? Is one worse than another? Are there some that are better? You know, I tend to get, well, what about this? Well, I fast this way. Well, I fast like this. Is this okay? Once again, as I've said before, I want you to be the CEO of your body. So I don't want you to think about what Coach Nat says is okay or not. I want you to take the concept. Why is fasting unhealthy? What can it lead to? What are the benefits versus the risks? Is there a way I can get the benefits without the risks? And I outlined for you the ways you can get the benefits without the risks. So there are other options, and fasting is not necessary. So let's talk about the trends, shall we? All right, first I want to start with intermittent fasting, because intermittent fasting is really not really what I mean when I'm talking about fasting. If we're talking about intermittent fasting with a 16-8 window, fasting for 16 hours and then eating within an 8-hour window. What we're really talking about there is time-restricted eating. So as long as within your eating window, you are eating adequately for your body's needs and not significantly reducing your intake, usually for the purpose of fat loss. And let me tell you, there's nothing magic about intermittent fasting. The benefits of intermittent fasting are the reduction in overall intake. People can tend to stick to their deficit better when they are not eating after a certain time at night. Usually it's at night, because everybody always overeats at night. I have literally never had a client that said, well, I know that I'm overweight because I binge in the morning. I eat too much at breakfast. Literally never been said by a single client. It's always the nighttime snacking. So typically what happens when a person sets an eating window and they have an eating curfew at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, and they're not eating at 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night before bed, they're simply cutting back on their overall intake. And usually it's cutting back on snacky foods that are not healthy for you anyway. But a lot of people intermittent fast and then significantly undereat. And in that case, it's just as unhealthy as long-term fasting. So also, a tighter eating window is not somehow better. So you do not need to go from 12 hours eating and 12 hours fasting to 10 hours eating and 14 hours fasting, or 8 hours eating and 16 hours fasting, or God forbid, 4 hours eating and 20 hours fasting. It's not better. In fact, I love to point out this little anecdote that the original study on intermittent fasting or time-restricted feeding that kind of blew up and created and set the tone for all of the popularity of intermittent fasting, it was a 16-8 window only because the lab technicians, the lab workers, were working in an 8-hour period. So they could only oversee the study over those 8 hours. So there's nothing magical about an 8-hour feeding window. It just happened to be the work hours, like a 9 to 5 work day. Think about that. There's nothing special about it. What's special about it is you set a boundary for yourself that was healthy. Like, I'm not going to snack at night while I watch Netflix anymore. Guess what? You could set that boundary without calling it intermittent fasting. But what I see way too much, and this is what I was just talking about, this whole like I feel better fasting, or you're a person who needs a protocol, you need carnivore, you need keto, you need a meal plan, you need somebody to lay out the rules of how to eat, or else you can't stick to it. There is something you need to look at mentally, emotionally. There's something there that has nothing to do with food. You're saying if somebody else makes the rules, I can stick to it. But if I set a boundary for myself, I can't do it. There's a problem there, and that has nothing to do with food. There's no reason why you can stick to it when you have a 16-8 feeding window, but you can't stick to it when you say, I'm not going to snack while watching Netflix anymore. Do a little digging there and figure out what's really going on. Okay, so intermittent fasting is not magic. It's also not as bad as fasting if you are ensuring that you're eating adequately throughout that period of time with real food nutrition. Okay. Now, the other side of that coin is extended fasting. I highly discourage anyone to ever, unless under medical supervision for a medical necessity, fast for more than 24 hours. I actually don't encourage at all or recommend at all ever fasting for 24 hours straight. Unless maybe you're doing it for a religious purpose. And even then, it's like barely 24 hours in most spiritual and religious practices. But there's no need to do extended fasting, period. So I would just highly advise against it. That's my opinion there. Okay. Now, I'm not talking about things like fasting for 12 hours overnight before blood work, or once again, intermittent fasting. And I would limit, honestly, I would limit intermittent fasting to no more than a 16-hour window. I don't think anybody really needs to fast for more than 10 or 14 hours, honestly, 12 or 14 hours. Just 12 hours would do wonders, especially if you're a nighttime snacker. Oh, and one more thing about intermittent fasting that I recommend to my clients. If you prefer intermittent fasting and you are a woman who skips breakfast, this is something Celeste brought up earlier. I'm not hungry in the morning. There is some circadian disruption going on. We should be hungry early in the day, because early in the day is when we need energy for our day. If we think back to ancient times, so many of us here in the keto carnivore space are all about the ancestral health, right? Our ancestors, if they woke up in the morning, they were likely hungry, and that was the time to go find food. After dark was not when they were out looking for food, because it was risky. So if you're going to intermittent fast, it would be much better to eat early in the day rather than waiting until afternoon for your first meal. Especially women, especially my women. If we are concerned about our cortisol levels and concerned about our stress levels, we need to feed ourselves and feed ourselves early, preferentially along with the circadian rhythm. So sun comes up to sun setting. Ideally, we don't want to be eating after sunsets, and it would be good to set ourselves according to the sun. There are incredible benefits to getting that first bolus, particularly of protein, early in the day. It's the best time to drive muscle protein synthesis with a good solid meal of at least 30 grams of protein from a whole food source, ideally. So if you're one of these ladies who fasts until afternoon, 1, 2 p.m., tries to see how long you can go without eating, I would encourage you to start eating earlier. I always hear from women, but if I do that, I'll be hungry all day. Guess what? That means your body's working the way it's supposed to. You're giving it something to do. You're giving it food, nutrients that it now is going to work on breaking down and utilizing in the body. That means all these processes are happening. So your body's using energy. So it's natural that you then want to eat more. But I can promise you that the answer is not fasting. Going back to fasting and fasting more. If you feel hungry in the morning, that's a good sign that your body is operating well. Because it should be. You should be hungry early in the day. And you should be hungry throughout the day. And I promise you, it may take time, but if you consistently feed yourself, if you consistently give your body nourishment throughout the day, when you are hungry, eat. You're not going to be starving at night. I have been there myself. When I was binging and purging, I was trying not to eat all day, and then I would go crazy at night. How many have been in that cycle before? I know I've heard it from a ton in our space. I was scared to death to start eating early in the day. And yes, at first I was hungry all day when I did that. But, and even to this day now, it's really interesting as I get older. I'm 42 now, going through perimenopause. As I get older, I'm noticing my body is signaling to me, giving me these hunger signals earlier in the day. I get hungry by 10 a.m., sometimes 9, depending on how early I'm awake. I get hungry again by 2 p.m. If I don't feed myself at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m., by 4 or 5 p.m., I am starving. There is no way I could push my body anymore to wait until 6 or 7, which used to be my normal dinner time, would be like 7 p.m. at night. So if I tried to eat breakfast at 10 a.m. and not eat again until 7 p.m., my body would be signaling to me, give me nourishment. And now when I feed myself, and today it was a great example. I ate at probably 10 a.m., got hungry again at 2, just decided to go ahead and take some of the food I had planned for my dinner and have it for lunch, and then have a smaller dinner. By the time I got to dinner, I could take it or leave it. So 6 p.m., I just had the little bit that I had planned, left for dinner. And then I sleep better because I'm not eating right before dinner or right before bed. So all that to say, intermittent fasting, if you're going to have an intermittent fasting window, I would make it at least 8 hours of eating. Don't try to shorten it even smaller than that. And do it early in the day and end it earlier in the evening rather than pushing it later in the day. Okay. Michelle says, I usually eat between 8 and 4. That's great. That's fantastic. And even that is very individual. Some people need some form of nourishment right before bed. Sean Baker recently talked about this. I think it was recent, unless it was an old video. That for some people, their sleep is interrupted if they do not have some sort of energy on board. So eating a small fat source or drinking it, let's say you're going to have like a nighttime, bedtime cocktail kind of a thing, with even better if you have one that has some nutrients in it that are good for sleep. We have one we're testing out right now called Kill Switch that has some good minerals and supplements for sleep in a hot cocoa format. So something like that, and adding a little bit of fat to it can sometimes help a person actually sleep better. So it is unique to the individual. So some people can do great ending that last meal at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. and not going to sleep until 9 or 10 p.m. Other people need to eat within like a 2-hour window. So really you kind of have to assess for yourself. But all that to say, intermittent fasting is okay if you're eating enough, but I would avoid extended fasts. Single food fasts. Let's talk about the sardine fast, the egg fast, and anything else that's one food. Not one meal, not as in one meal a day, but single foods. Eat nothing but sardines. Eat nothing but eggs. Personally, I would never do a fast like this, and I would never encourage a client to do a fast like this. The purpose, I understand the purpose. The purpose is twofold, especially with these two foods. With sardines and eggs, it is because those foods are incredibly nutrient dense. So it's a way of seeking to make a fast healthier by giving your body some nourishment, some nutrition. I always like to say that egg yolks are nature's multivitamin. They have a ton of micronutrition. Sardines are one of the most nutrient-dense foods you can consume. So I understand it for that purpose. Okay, instead of completely fasting, give yourself something that has a lot of great nutrients in it so you can nourish yourself well. The other reason why people do this is because of something called palate fatigue. When we eat nothing but the same thing all the time, and many of you who meal prep and literally eat the same foods all the time, how many of you are like beef bowl girls, like you do your ground beef bowl, your burger in a bowl, whatever, and that's your jam? I know some of them are here on the chat tonight. Similar concept, right? Eating beef all the time and all you ever eat is beef, right? Lion diet would fall in here. Beef, salt, and water is essentially a single food fast. We just don't call it the beef fast. I don't know why, probably for buzz reasons, social media reasons, right? To call something a fast makes it trendy, but it's really not a fast. If you're eating, it's not a fast, right? The very first definition, abstaining, although it does say abstain from all or some kinds of foods, so I guess you could call it a fast, but it irks me that it's called a sardine fast because you're not actually fasting from sardines. You're only eating sardines. So that's kind of like a little thing that irritates me about when we call a particular, like an egg fast. It's not a fast. Anyways, so you're getting some nutrition, but the other concept is that you're going to get sick of eating, well, especially sardines. Like, I don't know how many of you actually enjoy the taste of sardines, but most people don't. So it's this concept of you're eating this super nutrient dense thing, but it doesn't taste very good. So you're not going to be like struggling with wanting more of it and over consuming it. Eggs, you could maybe argue that they're enjoyable in many forms, but still, if it's only the same food that you're eating all the time, you're less likely to overconsume it because you have this palate fatigue that kicks in and you want something different. And this is what I really see, and the real problem, I think, with these fasts, these kinds of fasts, is that it attracts that person I was just talking about and talking to. If you just need to be stricter and that's the only way you can stick to it, there's a problem that has nothing to do with the food. There's no reason why you should be able to stick better to a diet because it's only eggs than if you were eating beef and eggs and lamb and salmon. And, why are we trying to cut further? We're already removing all these foods from our diet. If we just remove more foods, then we'll do even better. Like, that's disordered, y'all. That is disordered. So that's where I want you to really check your thoughts on these things. So I understand the concept of getting in touch with your hunger signals because you can trust your hunger signals when all you're eating is sardines or eggs. But at the same time, I tend to encourage even my carnivores to eat as much variety as you can within your chosen low carb lifestyle because different foods have different nutrient profiles. Lamb is different from beef, is different from sardines, is different from eggs, is different from other kinds of fish. It's different from chicken and pork and turkey. So even within carnivore, you can have a whole lot of different nutrients coming in different quantities and different profiles with different foods. And I'm always encouraging to expand your life and not shrink it. So it's the mindset, again, of I can't. And the I can't comes from a lack of self-trust. It's this, I can't trust myself to do that, so I have to do this. And that is not healthy. It's just simply not a healthy mindset. And mindset is everything. We have to liberate and empower ourselves that we are capable. And shrinking our lives is doing nothing but teaching us that we are incapable. We can't be trusted. That's not a way to live. Okay, so single food fasts. That leads us into protein-sparing modified fast, which is the next step in that direction. Protein-sparing modified fast, similar to single food fasts, is a way of giving your body some nutrients to help it function while you are not eating a lot. In this case, instead of focusing on micronutrients like sardines and eggs, it's focused on a macronutrient. It's focused on protein. So with a PSMF, protein-sparing modified fast, you are consuming nothing but protein, almost no carbs, almost no fat, and that is to protect your muscle mass while you are eating very, very little. So it's similar to a fast in that you are not putting really any energy into your body. You are energy deprived. However, I want to also point something else out about a protein sparing modified fast. Eating extremely lean proteins only, so we're talking chicken breast, turkey breast, egg whites, things that are just protein without fat. These things are lowest in nutrients in the animal kingdom. Animal proteins with natural fats in them, higher in fats with the proteins, are more nutrient dense. The protein by itself is a macronutrient, but it does not carry with it a lot of the micronutrients that you get with fattier meats. Now, you don't have to go the fattiest meats in the world, but going the leanest meats in the world only is not good for your nutrient absorption. First of all, you're going to be lacking in a lot of nutrients that you can get from fattier meats. But secondly, you don't have the fats to help with receiving and breaking down and assimilating the fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. So you could be getting all the A, D, E, and K you want, but if you don't have fat with it, your body's not going to absorb it. So PSMF, while I understand the purpose, it's about staving off hunger and maintaining your muscle mass while fasting, essentially barely giving your body any energy. And we're talking with a true PSMF, you're eating under 1,000 calories. Incredibly low energy. So, look at that. Karen knew. See, there's a delay here, so she was probably saying this before I even said it, or as I was saying it. Don't you absorb less nutrients without fats? Exactly. Yeah, especially the fat soluble ones. Yep. So, contrary to popular belief, though, let me just dispel this also myth in the keto space. Most of the nutrients are not actually found in the fat of the animal. If you just buy a tub of tallow, which I just did, I bought that Chicago Wagyu tallow, which tastes amazing. That's not full of a ton of nutrients. Butter is not, it has some nutrients, but it's the fat on the meat with the protein. It's the meat, the whole piece of meat that's coming with all the nutrients, not the separate, just the fat or just the amino acids. So you really want it in its natural form. This is why supplements cannot make up entirely for real food. Supplements are supplemental. So let's say, for example, you go on some kind of a fast, and there's a medical fast called the elemental diet. It's a type of diet where you are essentially, you're not eating food, you're drinking these liquid beverages that are made with amino acids and micronutrients. So you're given basically like a shake to consume to get your nutrition, but you're not eating food. So that is a type of like a medical diet under supervision that you could do for a particular purpose. And that one in particular is related to gut health, where they're still trying to give your body all the nutrients it needs. But I will say, ideally, we're getting those from real food in their natural form. Okay, so PSMF, my thoughts on that are that for the grand majority of the population, it is not necessary. I will just go out on a limb and say it's really not necessary for anyone. And if you are abusing PSMF and doing it all week or multiple days in a row, that is not the way it's intended to be done. The caveat here is that really any of these kinds of fasts, intermittent, extended, single food fasts, PSMF, alternate day fasting, which is just another form of extended fasting, but you're doing it on one day and then you're eating the next and you're alternating days. Where they would be mostly used in a medical situation aside from a very specific therapeutic use for, let's say, cancer or something. But we're talking about severe morbid obesity, particularly if you have a surgery that you have to get for a particular purpose, whatever the medical purpose might be, and you are significantly obese, and it puts you at risk to be able to do the surgery. So there will be surgeries that cannot be done until you lose 50 pounds or 100 pounds. And it's a surgery you need right away. And in those kinds of situations, these are medically supervised, and they might try some of these protocols because it can get that weight down really quickly, and that's their requirement for the surgery. Still doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. Okay. So that leads me to the final two types of fasting that are the biggest trends right now. And they are both the opposite of a protein-sparing modified fast. Instead of eating nothing but protein, you are eating either all sugar or all fat. And I am talking about the sugar fasting and the fat fasting. So, sugar fasting has become all the rage. It's everywhere now. And women in our low-carb community are getting duped into trying this, and it is having detrimental effects on them. In fact, Kelly Hogan just had 3 other carnivore ladies, Courtney, Luna, and Serena. Serena's the one who makes Purely Tallow skincare. Courtney and Serena are both friends of mine. And then, oh, I'm forgetting her name. She's kind of newer on the scene, but she's popping up everywhere now. My apologies if you watch this. I forgot your name. But it was those 3 ladies with Kelly Hogan, and they were talking about their experiences with the sugar diet and all of the terrible things that happened. If you want the Cliff's Notes, you know, they, especially Courtney and, oh, thank you, Michelle, Jenny Middich, who, by the way, has a book out on pre-sale right now. Yeah, she's newer to me. Maybe some of you have seen her stuff for a while. So, yeah, Courtney and Serena in particular were talking about that kind of like sugar addiction that came back for them and the struggles that they had dealing with that after they introduced the sugar. For Jenny, it was more of, I believe, more like the symptoms and the way she was feeling, and she's, you know, pretty quickly got back to it. But they all had regret over doing it, and it's, you know, it's this, like what I say all the time, it's the limbic brain. It's this emotional brain back here, the survival brain that hears these things and gets all excited and then starts coming up with all the excuses and the justifications for why it's a good idea for you. And I caution you, when you are intrigued by things, to really take some time to understand, what is this thing? Would this really be a good idea for me? Or is this a terrible idea? Is it really just my limbic brain that is trying to convince me that I should do this because it sounds fun? Or it's promising some miracle solution? Challenge the thoughts, ladies. That's my biggest platform, right? Challenge every thought you think. Okay, so ultimately, sugar fasting is about just eating nothing but sugar. And people who do this in the healthiest way possible, in air quotes, do this with whole foods, with mostly fruit and fruit juices. Those who are going for the likes and the views, or are sugar addicts, are doing this with candy, like pure sugar candy, not the ones that also have fats in them. The key to the sugar fast is that you cannot consume any fat, and you cannot consume practically any protein. So this is not a healthy whole foods diet. This is living on sugar. And how many of us tried the juice fasting, the juice cleanses in the 80s and 90s and 2000s? This ain't new. You know, they've been doing this for a long time. Are you going to lose a lot of weight? Sure thing. Is it going to be a healthy weight? Nope. Is it probably going to bring back all of your sugar cravings? Absolutely. And now there's science coming out on why these mechanisms. People are saying, oh, you know, I'm eating nothing but sugar all day and I don't crave it. That's because you're eating sugar all day. So as soon as you go back to eating real food, adequate protein and nutrients and fats for your body, all those cravings are going to come back. It's only a short-term thing. And there's a brilliant video, and I should post that link below as well, from my friend Jonathan Griffith's Carnivore Muscle, that he put out on the FGF21 enzyme that gets upregulated with sugar fasting, and spoiler alert, also with fat fasting. It's a danger signal. It is the body's danger zone survival mechanism. It is not what we want to seek. So we do not want to be chasing after this FGF21 upregulation. It's not a good thing. So, some in our space, including Sean Baker, Rob Sykes, Keto Savage, who I talked about last week, and Nick Norowitz, and now for those of you who know Keto, Greg, who works with Rob, Greg is going to be trying it with his current competition cut. And that's fat fasting. That's essentially taking the same thing that you would do with sugar diet, but do it with fat instead. And this is not new either. Many in our space, you know, this used to be a thing. It used to be talked about a lot years back. And now it's kind of having a resurgence because of it. It's the antithesis of the sugar fasting, but it's the same mechanism of dropping protein incredibly low, like under 9% of your total intake, not eating any carbs, so 0 carb to carnivore, and then just eating fat. And it's the same concept of, oh, you're going to lose weight really rapidly because FGF21 kicks in and yada, yada, right? I played around with the idea of trying this. I decided not to, especially after I saw Jonathan's video. You know, it made so much sense to me that this is not optimal health. This is not optimizing anything. This is a short-term danger zone survival mechanism that the body has. And I don't want to be playing with that kind of fire. Now, that being said, in one of my early preps, 2019, when I got my pro card, and I talked about this, I think, on last week's, I may have mentioned this on last week's video about my prep this year. My coach had me doing what he called modified fat fasts. And this is something I brought up inside my academy for some ladies if they were interested in trying it. And it's essentially doing an OMAD or even a TMAD, but you're keeping your intake of real food low and you're supplementing with little fat feedings throughout the day to still be able to give your body some energy without depriving it entirely of energy, like in a full fast, and then having at least that one meal in that day, regular meal. So you're still getting some level of adequate protein, maybe low, which low for what I generally recommend for most women. But it's done intermittently, not frequently, not consecutively. So similar to a PSMF, but instead of only eating protein, you're mostly eating fat, and then you're still having at least one regular meal. So it's a modified fast. So we did that maybe once a week or twice a week during that prep. It worked really well for me. On all the other days, I was, eating high ends of all of my macros. So it's a way of alternating higher and lower intake days. So not an alternate day fast, because you're not fully fasting on that modified fast day, but you are intaking more energy and you're giving your digestion a bit of a break. So this is yet another kind of way that you could modify fasting to make it a little bit healthier. Do it from time to time, especially if you really want to let that gut rest, and not doing it to the point where you are majorly depriving your body of nutrients. So that's something I may be throwing in here and there throughout this prep. Haven't fully decided yet. But rather than, I'm really kind of steering myself away from the FGF21 thing because I do have concerns about it. And I certainly wouldn't want to be doing what some of these people are doing and doing it consecutively for weeks at a time. And I don't care how good any of these men's blood work is at the end of those 4 to 6 weeks or however long they're doing it. So far, I've seen all of these people out there having success on these, whether it's sugar or fat fasting, they're men. I just don't believe that doing drastic things like this to a female body would have the same beneficial effects. And the science isn't out there on our side when it comes to a lot of these things. A lot of this science is done on men. So until I see some compelling evidence otherwise, I will continue to recommend against fasting of just about any kind for the grand majority of women, the grand majority of the time. And now you've got a piece of my mind. Thank you for hanging out and listening to me rant a bit tonight. Oh boy, Karen, I love this comment. The sugar fast is as smart as the tequila fast. Yeah, basically, exactly. A lot of these things out there, man, these trends, these trending topics, it's playing to your emotional limbic system, promising exciting, amazing benefits without any real work, without making, it's going to be so easy and effortless and fun and enjoyable. And of course, we're human. So we want this hedonistic, I can do whatever I want. I can get the results that I want. And that's just a fantasy. So basically, question everything, especially if it sounds too good to be true. I love this, Amanda. You certainly don't need rapid fat loss. I agree 100% that it's dangerous. The faster and faster we try, ladies, to get these results quicker, we're digging ourselves into a hole, and it will end up taking longer in the long run to heal ourselves from all the damage that we've done. And then seek the real change we wanted in the first place, which was never really about weight. It was about living in a healthy, optimized, fit, shapely, toned body. Yes, Karen, marketing and promises, empty promises based on nothing. Or cherry-picked science to make it sound like it's evidence-based. All right, ladies, I think I've ranted long enough. Thank you for chatting with me. Thank you for being here live. And if anybody watches the replay and has questions about any of this, wants to dig deeper into my thoughts on this or any other topic, drop me a comment. You might inspire next week's masterclass. And with that, enjoy your week. Go crush it. We are already almost at the end of July. Isn't that crazy? One more week this month, and then it's going to be August. So go crush your goals this week, and I'll see you next Monday.